Oh my gracious. Okay, I'm sorry. I had to get myself together. I'm so busy reading the chat that I got so distracted. Welcome, everyone. My name is Shaketta Thomas, and I am the president for the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, COABE. And I just want to say thank you so much. I've seen Alaska, Mississippi, Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee, California. I think almost every state is represented on here. And I know there's over 400 people who have registered for this event, which really does just like move me to see so many that are so well invested into AEFL Week. And, this is our prep webinar to kind of help get everyone geared up for September the 16th through the 20th. And I'm just hoping with all of you being here, like this will be the biggest, most impactful AEFL Week that we have to date. And, as we go into it, I think it's just so important to remember that here in the United States of America, more than 43 million adults struggle with low literacy. And research also shows us that children, or parents of children, also have that low literacy that goes from generation to generation because children reading level is kind of predicated on the parents' literacy because who reads to the children, right? The moms and the dads. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here and being a part of this prep webinar as we chat around about different ideas of successes of what works and how we can really raise the bar for AEFL Week. And in order to help us do so, we have some fabulous presenters. We have Erin Vobornik, Jeff Abramowitz, Christine Valdez, and as well as Megan from our Pin Hill group. You've met them before. They're our advocacy team that really helps us on the Hill with looking at different things and different bills that are being presented and help add our voice so that we really can impact the field of adult education. So again, welcome and thank you so much for being here. And also just thank you to our generous partners, Essential Education, who really do value our advocacy efforts in trying to raise awareness for adult education. So we just want to say thank you to Essential Education for sponsoring this event today. So at this moment, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, and I'm going to keep reading the chat and seeing where everybody is coming from. But I'm going to turn it over to Erin to kind of help gear us up for what we will have for us today. Erin.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to just take a moment so that each of us can introduce ourselves. And Jeff, if you'd like to kick us off, we'll go alphabetically.
Absolutely. Thanks, Erin. And thanks, Shaketta. So my name is Jeff Abramowitz. I'm Public Policy Chair for COABE and also State Advocate for Adult Education Fellowship co-chair with my partner, Erin, who's on today. And for the next hour, really excited about sharing with you Adult Education and Family Literacy Week and all the great things that are going to be happening. I'll pass it to Christine.
Hello, everybody. I am Christine Valdez, and I work at Middletown Adult Education in Connecticut. And I was a SAFE advocate, SAFE fellow last year, and I'm a mentor this year. And I just love the idea of staying involved.
And Christine's really selling herself short because she has been making a huge impact, not only within the state of Connecticut. So we at COABE have noticed her hard work, and we said we need to get her on this webinar to share what she's been doing. And I am Erin Vobornik. I am the Initiatives Administrator at COABE and co-chair with my friend Jeff for the SAFE Fellowship. So a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. First, what is AEFL Week? What is advocacy? We'll look at some different advocacy options available for all. Jeff will lead us through some wonderful advocacy tips, and then we'll shine a light on what COABE has planned for AEFL Week. So a little bit about what Adult Education and Family Literacy Week is. So on the third week of every September, we celebrate Adult Education and Family Literacy Week. It is a time for us to celebrate our successes and work towards solutions to our challenges. So today we're going to talk about how to do both, to celebrate and advocate, because those words are not mutually exclusive. Before we dive into ideas, tips, and resources, I would like to welcome Megan Flynn from Penn Hill Group to give some federal updates. So COABE has invested in the expertise of Penn Hill Group to help us guide policy development and analysis and maintain a strong government relations at the federal level to really move our field forward. So thank you, Megan, and I'll turn it over to you for some federal updates.
Great, thank you, Erin. I'm Megan Flynn. I'm a senior associate at Penn Hill Group. And as you heard from Erin, we support COABE with their federal policy priorities. So for our federal update today, we're going to talk about a few things: August recess, appropriations, and WIOA. So first off, the Hill is going on August recess, and this is a great time for you all to meet with your representatives and their staffers in your home districts. So both chambers will be back in session on September 9th, and then things on the Hill will start really picking up before the elections. So that's going to be great timing for AEFL week as well. Next up, appropriations. So earlier today, actually, the Senate Committee on Appropriations held their LHHS markup. So the LHHS bill is the Labor, Health, and Human Services bill, and it includes all the federal education funding. The bill was reported to the full Senate by a vote of 25-3, so it passed. But we don't actually expect this bill to go to the Senate floor, so this is probably as far as the appropriations process will go for now. We do expect to see a CR or continuing resolution until sometime after the election. You all may remember a similar situation last year. So up until that time, Congress will be trying to figure out if they can strike an appropriations deal. So just to reiterate, AEFL week falling in that mid to late September range is really great. That's going to be a critical time to continue making those funding asks. And lastly, WIOA, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, it passed in the House, and some of our WIOA priorities were included in the House version of the bill, so there were definitely some wins. We thought that the Senate version of the bill might be marked up last week, but that didn't end up happening. So at this point, we're expecting a Senate markup in September. With that, we have a good start in the Senate bill, and they did include some of our COABE priorities, including increased funding for professional development for adult educators, support for integrated education and training programs, or IETs, as well as a definition of digital literacy. So we are continuing to push for the inclusion of all of the provisions of S3075, or the Adult Education Works Act, in the Senate version of the bill, in addition to what they already included. So the additional provisions that we're still pushing for include improving collaboration and coordination between Title I and II programs, ensuring that learners are covering information literacy skills as well as digital literacy skills, and allowing innovation within the performance accountability system so that we can better measure the success of your students and programs. And lastly, ensuring that we have access to college and career navigators for our learners. So we hope that you all will continue to be responsive to our weekly alerts and push for these WIOA priorities. I know that might have been a lot of information. So in summary, the big priorities here are WIOA and adult ed funding. August is going to be a great opportunity to meet with people, your representatives and their staffers while they're home. And lastly, AEFL week is perfect timing, and it's going to be a crucial time to meet with your legislators.
Okay, thank you so much, Megan. And yes, that I know it is quite a bit of information. So I will say I do see in the Q&A, there's a question for how do you sign up for these alerts? So as a COABE member, these will automatically be going out to you. So Penn Hill Group funnels those alerts through COABE. So you should be getting those either in an email blast. And then also if you're reading the weekly COABE Connects, that's a wonderful way to be able to stay on top of these federal alerts. So before we get into ways to advocate, I do want to level set. So a common concern that I've heard in working with advocates is the concern that advocacy is a political act, which in a politically divisive time can be problematic as employees in grant-funded programs. So I just want for us to kind of reframe advocacy as educating those with the power to make the changes we seek. So sharing our successes and highlighting our needs. So advocacy is public support for a cause, and it isn't lobbying. There is a difference. It doesn't need to be political. So again, yes, and thank you, Janice, for the noting the typo there. Consider reframing your advocacy to educating others in order to raise visibility of adult education and the impact of our work. So keep that in mind today as we are working through it. If you kind of reframe advocacy here as raising visibility of adult ed, sharing our successes, highlighting our needs, there is a huge impact to be made. And I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Okay, so Erin came up with this great slide, which I love because it really breaks down. You have to pick where you fit. There's light lifting, medium lifting, and heavy lifting. And so it's as much or as little as you want to do or as you want to get others to do. And I think I'm ready for the next slide, just to break down a little bit what some of these things are. So a few examples of light lift. COABE makes things so simple. And prior to being a SAFE fellow, I know I got emails from COABE all the time, and I'm sure a lot of people did, and we all get so many emails, we get inundated. But if you really take the time to see how COABE breaks things down on their site for you, they just lay everything out on a silver platter for you. So COABE makes light lifting really easy. You can go to their 3-click software for Twitter or X, which is actually now 2 clicks apparently. And that's an example on your left where it says compose a message. It literally, once you've done it once, it will just plug you right in. And you not only can do that, but you can share it with teachers as a civics lessons. You can have students do it. It's just literally a matter of seconds, and you've had a huge impact. And what that does is create a Twitter storm, and it's still called a Twitter storm, not an X storm, but and then the other examples would be the marquee would be if you have, a town, a lot of times in towns, they'll have some kind of big thing for their school, like the signage where they can change it on a regular basis. At my school, the public school, we're part of K through 12, they do that, but they often forget adult ed, of course. So we have our own, we just have a giant like television that we can change slides for that run all the time. So, during AEFL week, we'll run information for students, we'll give them information, we'll tell them about Twitter storms and just give them updates. So it's just something quick and easy that you can do that will have a much bigger ripple effect. The next would be more medium lifting. And again, COABE makes this so easy. You can take this as far as you want. So proclamations are something that we are asking, we try to get all the governors. In Connecticut, we went as far as trying to get mayors in the district. Some people got superintendents. It can be really any public official that as many proclamations as we can get. And they have a template already on the COABE website, and there'll be in links to that in this presentation. And you can literally just change it to whoever you want to send it to and forward it along. everybody's different. Sometimes you have to go through a form that you fill out, and if you look up who you want to send it to, if I think, for example, in our the governor of Connecticut, you just fill out a form, and like 2 weeks later you get it back. Our mayor, it was just about a matter of emailing. And then you can take that to the next step, which would be, you know, they might ask you, do you want us to mail it to you? Would you like to come pick it up? That could take you into more heavy lifting. You know, you could take this getting a proclamation to a whole new level, or you could take it just back to light lifting and take your proclamation and share it on social media. Look what we got, you know, our mayor, our superintendent is proclaiming this to be, you know, AAFL week in Connecticut or Wisconsin or whatever town you're in. Policymakers just writing a quick letter. Again, there's templates to everything on COAVE. So whether it's writing a press release about AEFL week, whether it's writing an email to a policymaker, you can make it as personal as you want it, or you can make it as easy as you want it and just sub in your name, what you know, what you want to do, and let COAVE do all the work for you. The last and the more heavy lifting, which sometimes involves a lot more people. Some of us, I know every state is different. Some of us have state associations that are very involved. Some of us have state associations with a paid executive director. Some people have nobody. They're just a safe advocate on their own, or they're a director of an adult ed on their own. They're just, you know, trying to make an impact. Whatever you do, it will have an impact. It's just getting more people involved. So with heavy lifting, like I said, if you did for example, you did a proclamation. When we did our proclamation to our local mayor, our mayor's office happens to be very close to our school. So I gathered some students together and we said, we'll come pick it up from you. And so once he heard students were coming to his office to pick it up, well, then he felt obliged to meet with them, which, you know, we got a conversation, we got a photo opportunity. And we've done that before with others as well. So anytime you can get an opportunity to sit down and meet with a policymaker, you'll have a huge impact. And Jeff has so much more to say about that and is much the more eloquent political speaker than I. I just like to keep it simple and most often involve my students, because if your students are there with you, you don't really have to say much at all, because the policymaker is going to want to talk to your student, and whatever they ask your student, all our student stories are just so impactful. So it's going to have an effect. And then again, more heavy lifting. You can follow up. My students happen to want to write a thank you after they met with the mayor. So then we took that opportunity to post the thank yous that they wrote to the mayor on social media. What an impact it had on these students, whether they were GED, CDP, ESL. It really had an impact on them, and sharing that with other people and tagging your policymakers or who they met with and other policymakers just makes people think, well, maybe we should take an opportunity to open our doors and meet some people. Site visits, you can invite people in. If you can't get there, you can always invite whoever in, whether it's a superintendent. We like to invite principals from districts. In my school, we cover many districts, and inviting principals in from other districts encourages them to see us as a viable opportunity to have their students come to us to finish their high school if they're not fitting in well at the regular K through 12 system. You can invite Chamber of Commerce. You can invite the sky's the limit, whoever you want, but inviting people in, giving them a tour, showing them what you're doing. Again, social media, a little video clip, a picture, posting it. For those of you who have a social media person at your site, that is wonderful. That is my huge goal at my where I work. Right now, it's just me. So, you know, if you can get that on your agenda, that's a heavy lift. But once you can get on your agenda and get somebody to fund a social media person for you, it's a full-time job, and it's so important to adult education. COAVE makes it easy, but there's still so much to do, and it's day and night work, because when you want to be impactful, you have to do it when it happens. So if something happens politically to happen, you want to post on it, even if you don't work in the summer or you don't work in the evening. So it's nice to have a social media person who's really dedicated, and directors are often busy enough. and the next thought for a heavy lift would be the student ambassador program. The student ambassador program, I believe, is Erin's baby that she created to train students to tell their stories in a better way. And I'm going to give you an example of this. I had a student who last year he won our state association award. He was just such an impactful story. He worked all day, all night. He worked at FedEx. He would work until 7 a.m. He would go home. He would change his clothes. He would come into school at 9 a.m. It took him probably about 4 years on and off, but he eventually got his GED. And then he went on to get a certificate program through WIOA and is now going to community college. Where he came from and where he's going is just so far. So I told Erin about this and she thought, well, great, let's have him on our podcast. It's called Advocast. So we thought, this is great, tell a story. I was with Stone that day and it just to tell a bad joke, it fell like a stone. Like it was not good at all. And the reason being, no fault to Stone. He was just nervous. He didn't know what to say. And it was difficult to even if you asked him questions, he would, even if they were open-ended questions, it would be yes, no. It just didn't have the impact that I knew it could have. So this is where the student ambassador program comes in. Learning how to tell your story is so important, especially because most of our students are embarrassed about their stories and where they came from and the trouble that they've had in the past or what they've gone through. And they need to learn the power that their story has for others and that sharing their stories can encourage others. And that makes them also feel so good, which they need to. They need to feel good about what they've accomplished and where they've come from. So the Student Ambassador Program isn't just about teaching them to advocate for us, but it's also, it really empowers them and makes them feel better. So I'm going to really push the Student Ambassador Program in Connecticut this year and try and have a statewide training program so that we would have at least several student ambassadors come out of every program in our state. Because if your site has even one student ambassador, it takes your work from the heavy lift and puts it on them and makes you the light lift now, because all you have to do is let them tell their story and share it. And there's a variety of ways to share it. I think that's it. Oh, I forgot to tell you where the stories were, where all those were from, but one was from West Virginia. The first one was from West Virginia. The middle one was from Utah, a site visit, and the student ambassadors were from the Wisconsin Student Ambassador Program, which is going back to being an in-person program, I should mention. They tried to pull it off after 2020 through online, but it's really difficult, even with a hybrid. Erin tried to pull it off, but it sounds like we're going to be trying to train people, and here's another heavy lift idea, train people to become ambassador training. So maybe you're somebody who wants to step up and to do the training so that you can become an ambassador trainer, so that you can train other people in your state, other students. You can train students at your site only, as much or as little as you want, but it would be, if you had somebody local, if you learned how to do that, you would be able to reach that many more students. So no effort is too small. And what I will say with that is that something so little like, if you haven't heard about the pledge for adult education, it's at the end and everybody needs to take that pledge. It is so important. Erin will share with you the statistics. And right now it is so sad how few people have actually taken the time to take that pledge. It takes seconds. But something like taking that pledge it's a little thing to do, but it has a huge impact. Putting it at right now I changed it and have it at on the signature to my email, so that at the bottom of my email, they can see it, they can click on it and take the pledge if they, to whoever I'm emailing, or on my social media, I often have it in the background. It'll just have a QR code and draw attention to that. And during AEFL week, we're going to have huge posters made with QR codes that people can just scan when they see us at our state capitol and take the pledge. So that is the smallest thing you can do that we really need help with right now. On to you, Erin, I think. What? Is this still me?
It's going right to
Oh.
me. So hi everybody, Jeff Abramowitz here. I'm super excited to talk to you for a little bit about advocacy and some tips and tricks and things that you can be doing. The first thing I want to be really clear on, this isn't just about going to Capitol Hill. You're going to hear about us flooding Capitol Hill and doing things on the Hill, but this is really about local influence. We know that federal money is one thing, but a lot of adult education is funded at the local level, at the state level, and this is really about stepping up to your mayors, to your local legislators, to your state people, and really embracing them with why adult literacy is so important and why they should be supporting it. I always say when I'm up on Capitol Hill and I'm meeting with legislators or wherever I am, it really doesn't matter what party you're in. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter what you are. There's two things that are true about adult literacy. The first thing that's true is everybody universally in this country wants to get people smarter. They want to get people smarter so they can find their way into a career pathway. So don't ever think that no matter who the legislator is, now they might disagree on how it gets funded. I get that part of it, but the truth is that education is a bipartisan issue, and it's really supported by both sides of the aisle. And then the second piece of that is that everyone wants people back to work. There are more job openings in our country than there are people to fill them. And one of the things that leads to successful careers is adult literacy and adult education, kind of getting them into that career. So those are two really strong points that you should be making along the way. The other thing, truthfully, is that legislators are most impacted by the stories in their regions and where they live. And if you can have your learners tell stories, or you tell stories, your instructors tell stories about successes or even challenges. I was in a facility once recently, in a school facility, where they were struggling with their computer lab. They just couldn't get internet access where they were. They had a bunch of challenges with it. And the legislator that was with me during the tour, he was so impacted by that. He made some calls right away to see how he could change that. Legislators want to hear stories, period. They want to know what's going on in their districts. Gosh, we are the people in their districts that voted them into office. And for some of them, these are really easy lifts, calls that they can make or ways to support them. I do believe that, a person without data is just another person with an opinion. And in the work that we do, it's really super important that you gather data about the work that you're doing, the facilities that you're in. And if you're on a federal level or state level, there's a whole host of resources out there, which Erin's going to share with you. But come prepared. Gather the data on what you think is most impactful and what you're going to be asking for, and have it right in your fingertips. And then the next is, advocacy is all about connecting with people. It's about creating relationships and making that bond so that it's not just when you go in to see that person, but during the holiday season or even in a year from now, that you have that connection with someone that you can call and say, hi, remember we met in the office, or you came to our facility, because truthfully, that is how change happens. And influence begins to really to be the key. Advocacy is the way we make change happen, but it's all about relationships. And go to the next one. The truth when we talk about advocacy and tips is it takes a great story, using simple language, remembering the force of empathy, and touching someone's heart. Back it up with the data that you have, and always include a call to action, something that's going to happen that you want. What is it that you want to get people to move on? What is it that your call to action is? What are you asking for. And then you really want to be able to tailor your story to your audience. There was a great question in the chat just now about, well, we want to bring our students in, but how do we prepare them? And I think one of the best ways I found for preparing students is actually do a role play. Do a mock legislative visit, bring them in and sit them down and have somebody play the legislator and get them to tell their story. Let them practice. Because what happens often is you have a very short time window and they end up talking about everything sometimes except what you really want them to tell them, which is their story. Like why, what happened? Why was it so impactful for them? So you want to give them an opportunity to practice and even have some note cards, maybe some little talking points down so that they are prepared when they walk into that office or they're meeting with a legislator or anyone, and they're prepared to tell their story, because that's how it happens. And a lot of times if you don't prep them, they may not necessarily be aware of exactly the time limitations or what's going to happen, or the appropriateness of shaking someone's hand and all those little things. We can go to the next slide. Advocacy tips are really basic. They're really simple. The first thing I love to do with any advocacy adventure that I'm on, and they truly are adventures because you never really know what's going to happen or where they're going to go. But the very first thing I like to do when I'm thinking about the meeting that I'm going to have, or the conversation, or the coffee, or the person I'm going to be talking to, is really I want to have intelligence. I want to gather my intelligence. I want to know that from that person, where is their lane of influence? Where is it that they can help me most? They may be on the energy committee and I may be doing an ITA or an IET with some kind of energy component. Who knows? But the fact is that you want to do some gathering of intelligence. You want to know who the person you're talking about and what common bonds that you have. One of the best tips that I do is the first thing I do when I walk into a legislator's office is I look around. And if I see that they have a whole wall of Walt Disney stuff, I'm telling them about when I went to Walt Disney World. Like, you want to find those connections with people. But gathering your intelligence means knowing who you're talking to, knowing the influence that they might have and the committees that they sit on, and then also having your data down pat. How many learners do you have? What is it that you need most in your school? What are your successes? And having all that information at your fingertips. You want to also know that this is an investment in relationships. This is a place where you want to connect with them on the same level that you're on. Trust me, legislators are us. They are everyone that we work with. They just ran for election and got into that position, and you want to get them on a real equal level. And then the last is you want to prep for in advance. Be ready, prep your students, have a mock run through, have a little itinerary. You're only sometimes going to have 15 to 20 minutes to get everything you want out. And gosh, sometimes that just takes introductions. You go around and say your name, and that's 15 minutes. So be prepared on how you're going to move it, and always have somebody kind of leading the charge as you go forward. Next one. So there's so much going on for Adult Education Family Literacy Week, and I'm going to talk through some of them so you know. But last tip on advocacy is, honestly, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. You got to come to this with your heart and your passion and all the work you do, and realize that you are the experts. You are the ones that are in the classrooms. You're working with the students. You want to be able to share that with legislators who are not there and they can't see what you see. So how you express it and tell that story is what it is all about. Adult Education and Family Literacy have a bunch of things going on, from Flood the Hill, Rise and Shine, Educate and Elevate, high quality webinars, and some state and the toolkits. Let's go to the next one. I'm going to walk you through some of them. The first is the Flood the Hill. And I really think next year we're going to change this, because one of the things that's happening is we are all going to Capitol Hill and we are making this monster charge to meet with legislators. We have all these great things taking place on the Hill that week. But the Hill that we're referring to is not just in Washington. It is in every city in this country. So all of you that are on this call, you need to flood your Hill. And your Hill is your state legislators' offices, your local congressmen's offices, their local offices where you can walk in and set up a meeting and, and not have to go through all the challenges, maybe getting up into Washington and traveling. Just go into your neighborhood, go talk to people that are your locally leading your local charge, even your school boards. Gosh, anyone that has influence in this space. So when we talk about Flood the Hill, we're talking about Washington, but more importantly, we're talking about the hills all across the country. Next slide. So the other thing that I do, which I'm really I live for this, anybody will tell you, is Rise and Shine. So Rise and Shine is a podcast. So some of you may know, shameless plug, is I have a podcast with Anson Green called Behind Every Employer that we do. If you haven't watched it, get on the COABE website and check out Behind Every Employer. But I do every day this week, I'm doing Rise and Shine, which is going to be a podcast that's broadcast from Washington, and we're going to be having guests on. So we did this last year. We're going to do it again this year. If you have any interest on telling a rock star story, or you just want to share something that's going on, shoot us an email. Shoot COABE an email. Erin will put the email address up because we want to get you onto this podcast. We have all these great people lined up that are going to be sharing the work that they do across the country. If you have any interest in being on the podcast, we want to capture your story and we want to share it out with the country. So Rise and Shine podcast is every single morning. I think it starts at 9 o'clock. We're usually on for an hour, and then throughout the day, we'll be posting a schedule, but definitely want to check that out. The next one is something that I'm also passionate about. Next slide, which is the pledge to support adult education. So I have my phone up, and I want you all to pull up your phones, take your phones out. Come on, one time you can do it. Take your phone out, and I want you to hit the QR code. And the QR code on the screen is going to give you the pledge to support adult education. This is one of the best ways to be an advocate. It's so simple. I keep it on my phone. I keep the QR code on my phone because these are all 10 things that you can do that will support adult education. Just recognizing the right to education, social mobility, health and well-being, workforce development, and its importance in economic growth in relation to education. Everything's in here: digital literacy, correctional and reentry education, safer communities. There's not anything in this pledge that doesn't make good common sense for everyone. So get on there, take the pledge. The more people that we have that can make this pledge, the more powerful it's going to be. And you definitely want to take some time to kind of make this happen. So I do think that one of the greatest things we can do is go in front of a legislator and say, we got 1 million people to support this pledge on adult education. And it's just not hard to do. Just get it out there, share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends. I had all my family do it at dinner the other night. Just anywhere you can go, get people on to support this work and the pledge. I will leave you with this. Adult Education and Family Literacy Week is the one week in a year where we really can focus on adult education, but it's not just about that week. It's something that we should embed in all of our practices. We should be inviting our state leaders and congressmen and local representatives and school boards to our classrooms to tour our facilities. And it shouldn't just be during this week. It should be every single day of the year that we should make a concerted effort to advocate. So I look forward to working with you guys, with everyone on this call. If you have any questions at all, I'm always available through COABE, and I'm looking forward to some great things for AAFL week. Erin?
Thank you. And Jennifer, I see your question in the chat about who receives the pledge. So COABE is collecting that information, and then the next step after that will be, once we have a real significant number of those pledges, that we can actually begin working with the 119th Congress once they come in to be able to share with them that data, but also we'll share it out to the field, right? So that you would be able to say in conversations with legislators or stakeholders, here are X number of individuals who have pledged their commitment to adult adult education in our state. So that will all be shared once we give everybody time to sign that pledge and continue to share it. All right, so I want to talk about some of the other opportunities and tools and resources that are available for you. So all of this is going to be found either on COABE's AFL Week webpage, which I am sharing in the chat right now, or also on the State Leaders Toolkit webpage, which I'm also sharing in the chat right now. So the State Leadership Toolkit is for everyone, even if you don't consider yourself a state leader. I'll say by joining this webinar today, you are a leader. You're a leader in adult education because you understand the importance of AFL Week, of visibility for our field, and of continuing to push all of the levers that we can push to be able to get the funding we need and really to let people know what we're doing. So on that toolkit for state leadership, participating in National Adult Education and Family Literacy Week, you'll see templates for meetings. You'll see talking points. There is an entire social media campaign where you can copy and paste right into social media. And we have some really eye-popping graphics that you can use as well so that you don't need to create your own graphics. You can use ones that we already have, data that we already have as well. Throughout AFL Week, we may have some occasional webinars in addition to the incredible Rise and Shine podcast that Jeff does. Born podcaster, Jeff. You're a born podcaster, and I love this idea of an advocacy adventure. So you can feel free to check our AFL Week website in the coming month. Give us some time to put up our list of events, but you can see what we had from last year, and you can actually still watch those webinars and those recordings from last year as well. Additionally, we really want to amplify what is happening in every state. So please let us know, right? I put the advocacy@coabe.org email in the chat a few times. You can use that for general questions with advocacy, but also to share what your state is doing. And if you share it in advance, COABE can help kind of blast that news out to the nation.
Erin, you want to mention the Padlet too, that they could share on the Padlet?
Yes, so we also have a Padlet. If you click on that Access the State Toolkit, on the right-hand side, you'll see a number of different resources there, including the toolkit, the proclamation sample, and you'll also see a link to the 2024 Padlet. And so every year we collect all of the advocacy efforts and amazing things that are happening onto that Padlet. So you can go ahead and email advocacy@coabe.org to get it added, or you can I believe there's also the option where you can add it to the Padlet, and then it just needs to be approved by one of our staff members on our side, and then it will appear on there. So that's something you can challenge those in your state to do, is everything that they're doing at their program, county or state level, to make sure that that gets on that Padlet. Right? Challenge to have something in, just to light up your state with all of the little ping marks of things that are happening during AFL Week. I also want to share that on the Educate and Elevate webpage, that we have a number of different resources available for you as well. So first we have our state fact sheets. And this, I will say, if you are saying, Erin, it says reporting period 2021 to 2022, we use the most recent information that has been published by the NRS. And so that is where we are at currently. And so every time that we're notified that there is a new fiscal year that's been posted, these do get updated. So just something I like to mention here in case you are handing them out to individuals and they say, ooh, why are these dates older? Well, it's the turnaround time from the NRS. So these are a wonderful way to kind of contrast. You can see here, this is a statistic that I always love to share with legislators, the number of federal funds per adult learner compared to the per student funds for elementary education. So 1,000 as compared to 10,000. And this is in Kentucky. You'll notice every state is different. Additionally, we have adult learner success stories available. So if you don't have an adult learner who feels like they are prepared to go into a meeting, or they just don't want to share their story orally, we do have a kind of almost portfolio of different learner success stories that have been submitted. And I'll say, in fact, just last week, I happened to have one of the adult learner success stories for Illinois in my binder when I met with the congressperson for the district that that learner was engaged in. And so I was able to pull that out and hand it to him and say, this is a story from an adult learner within your district, right? Look at what she has done. And in fact, these are never up to date because our adult learners continue to do amazing things. But that is one way that you can pull some of that information, and they all look fantastic like this. And they are great for being able to send via email as well. I see a Kentucky shout out. Thanks, Angelique.
Can I interrupt 1 second about that, Erin?
Absolutely, yes.
I just want to mention that that is such an easy thing to do for every state. COAB just does it. You just look up your state and it'll do one for Kentucky, one for Connecticut. You could just print it up and there you have something to hand out when you meet with somebody or to email somebody or to post on social media. If you want to as well, Connecticut, we decided to tweak ours last year. And we took a lot of like the exact setup, but we added our state association logo. And then we even made it easier for individual sites if they wanted to also add their logo. The State Department of Education added their logo, just to make it so that our local people knew that it was like, what's COAB, you know? But so COAB was on there, Educate and Elevate, but as well as also state. We also updated some of the data depending on what you use. We use LACES or sometimes we use census data. So we changed the numbers because the numbers we had made us look better. So we upped the numbers a little bit. So you might want to compare your stats to see if you can make your numbers look even better. You can also upload this, download it as a PDF and then upload it into Canva. I discovered that this year and makes it even easier because you can just have the whole template right there and then just tweak it. We actually started from scratch, which was a big mistake. So
Erin, I'm going to add one more piece.
Yes.
Is that if you go to a meeting and you meet someone and you don't have this data in front of you, it's actually a good opportunity for you to say, you know what, can I have your business card? I'd be glad to send you this fact sheet and you can email it to them. So just because you may not have it with you at the time or you bump into someone in another meeting on a street, this is a great follow-up for those kinds of things where you can email them directly.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I want to take a moment here because you've heard a lot of different ideas, and I know this is just scratching the surface, right? Everybody always comes to these webinars and shares ideas in the chat that just blow me away. But I'd like for everybody to, before leaving the webinar today, to make a commitment to AFL Week. So what do you commit to do for AFL Week? And I'd love to just see a waterfall of commitments here in the chat. So type your commitment, hit enter. And we do have over 200 participants in this webinar. So I probably won't be able to follow up with each person and make sure that you you followed your commitment. But this is just a great way of, just kind of saying, like, what is it that you commit to doing for AFL week? Ooh, local stakeholders to coffee chats, updating the fact sheet, social media. Okay. Great. I'm seeing a lot of information with those fact sheets. The pledge, yes, that is a wonderful one. An adult education networking night, rallies, proclamations, TV ads. Ooh, and again, when these things happen, make sure you share them back with us because we would love to give you a shout out and make sure that the entire nation knows, right? As we said, there are light lifts for advocacy, but there's still lifts. And at COABE, we truly believe in making sure that the work that you do is celebrated. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. Well, I got what I asked for. There were so many comments that I, in fact, could not read them fast enough. So I'm going to be making sure I can read this chat later, or I will be watching the recording. And I know there were some questions about where can you find this recording? So if you registered for the event, which you did because you're here, you'll get it within your email, but also as we did last year, we will update it on COABE's AFL Week webpage, which was shared in the chat. You can also just Google that. Right now it has last year's, but after today, once this webinar is done rendering, we will go ahead and update it there as well. So you can share that out with anybody who needs this information, or if you need to rewatch part of it, you'll have that available to you. So we just want to thank everybody for joining us here today. And make sure that you get AFL Week marked off on your calendar. And we are wishing you the best in flooding the hill, both at the local, state, and federal levels. And we are really excited for what all of this advocacy during AFL Week could mean, as Megan kind of pointed out in the federal updates, for the legislation that is pending, including our appropriations, AKA funding. Thank you all.